Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our course breakdown. This time we've got ourselves the Scottish Open to work with, a big boy field, and a golf course with the Renaissance Club that I think is highly underrated and one that is going to really test these players, especially if some of the early weather forecasts come true. So in this video, gonna break down what you need to know this week before going out there, firing on DFS exposure, outrights, that sort of thing, and let you know the sort of key stats, the kind of comp courses that you might want to keep an eye on to go out there and do some of your modeling this week. So without further ado, a ton to get into with this big boy track in the Renaissance Club. Let's go ahead and get this thing started. First things first, the Renaissance Club over there in North Berwick, Scotland. It's real close to Muirfield Country Club. You've got North Berwick Club nearby as well, so plenty of iconic tracks. But what we want to focus on here is that this specific golf course is not the true link style that you have with a Muirfield or over there at North Berwick. This is a little bit more inland. In fact, the entire front nine is much more similar to, I would say, an American style golf course than what you'd see over there for quote unquote links. But the back nine, especially the first 5-6 holes on the back nine, are very much so a link style course. So I believe that this is the perfect kind of transition for some of the tour players coming over there to the UK to get used to the Open Championship type of conditions. Not only do you have that link style for the first, like I said, 5-6 holes on the back nine, when we go hole by hole, that'll be especially apparent, but you also get a little mix of the American style holes. So with half the field being American, half the field being from the DP World Tour, I think there's not really going to be a massive advantage to either type of player, right? You're going to see guys that have success on the link style holes, and that maybe on that front nine where it's a little bit more protected, there's a lot more forced carries on the front nine, not nearly as much creativity or coastline to worry about. A lot of the American style players are probably going to find success there. So it's a good mix. It's the perfect kind of golf course to have a combined event at, and hats off to the PGA Tour, the DP World Tour, for putting this together. I think it's just an absolute treat. And last year, perfect golf tournament, right? -7-1 there with Xander Schauffele. And I think you're going to continue to see top end players taking this home, and especially if the weather cooperates like it's going to for this week, I think you're going to see a lot of low scores, like single digit type of winners around the Renaissance Club. So a few specifics. Let's go through what we need to know here. Par 70 setup designed by Tom Doak in 2008, so not a really old golf course. It measures nearly 7,300 yards, so 7,293 would be this course maxed out. It's worth noting that last year it played much closer to 7,000 yards for all 4 rounds, so they can play it much longer. They chose not to last year, but like I said, you still had the -7 winning score, so a lot of that comes down to the conditions, the type of winds that players will be in, whether the greens are going to be receptive. And last year you had firm and fast conditions mixed with high winds for 3 of the 4 rounds, which led to extremely high scores. Guys like Tringale got after it round 1, were able to go out there and shoot a 62, actually 61 even. He shot 9 under par in the first round and then completely came back to the field. This year, it's not going to be as firm and fast. It's been very wet. It's been very rainy in the area for the last week or so in North Berwick, and they're supposed to have rain every single day this week. That includes the 4 days of the tournament. So you're going to see more receptive conditions this time around. Unfortunately for players, those high, actually I got ahead of myself there. Those rainy days are also going to be mixed with high winds. Those high winds combined with rainy conditions might neutralize some of the receptiveness of the greens, right? They'll still be receptive, but when you're playing in nasty wet conditions and the wind is going out there taking the rain sideways on you, making it impossible to control your golf ball, it could be extremely difficult. So I think the weather is going to be a huge factor this week. If it ends up being soft without the wind to worry about, you could see something like 19 to 20 under par winning. That's even after changing it from par 71 to par 70. A few years ago, I think they did it before last year's golf tournament was the first time it played as a par 70. Before that, it was a par 71. So when you take a look at when Aaron Rai won, guys like Minwoo Lee were winning this golf tournament. The further back you look, all of those were at par 71. So it's worth noting that the winning score, right, some of the, -20s that you see for a few of those years were likely because of that change, along with the fact that the weather wasn't all that difficult. So it has a huge impact. You've had guys like -7 win. Minwoo won at -18. Keep in mind that that would have been -14 right after the change of par. Aaron Rai won at -11. That would have been -7 just like last year. And Bernd Wiesberger won the year before that at -22, which again would have been 18 under par. So I'd say anything between like -7, -18 could win this golf tournament, and that is all going to come down to the weather over the weekend. In terms of your course setup, we're going to go hole by hole here in a second, but it does have 3 par 5s. So though it is a par 70, you have 1 par 5 on the front, that's hole number 3, and then on the back 9, holes number 10 and holes number 16 are par 5. So the one that was changed is hole number 7. So you'll see on some sites that that might be listed as like a 560-yard par 5. Well, this year it's going to be a 505-yard par 4, the same as last year, right? So there's no difference between what you saw in 2022 and 2023, but just worth noting that because I've seen on a few previews to this point that people are pointing that out as a par 5. It is in fact a par 4. In terms of your par 3s, you have 5 of them. So once again, a little bit different than most of your tour stops. You have 3 on the back 9 and 2 par 3s on the front 9, which is how you get the par 70 to add up there, right? Even with the 3 par 5. So a little bit strange there. Your scoring average last year, which again, I think it's going to play a little bit easier this year, right? The winds are going to be high, but it'll be more receptive, was 1.75 over par. So maybe it plays like 1.25 over par this year. It's hard to say, right, without a huge sample size. The driving accuracy was lower than 50%. It was 48.9% last year, which is 11.2% lower than what you're used to seeing. That is crazy. Your green regulation percentage was 59.3%, which was also well below your tour average, only about 6.7% lower though, right? Not the 11% metric that you had over there with the fairways. So your ball striking is difficult here. You have a lot of people trying to get up and down, difficult link style up and down shots on the back 9. Really the test that you're looking for. And like I kind of started off with, I think it tests everyone equally. I don't think that the European guys, the guys that are really good around the green, windy conditions, are just going to run away with it this year because you have plenty of holes where ball striking ability, right, that American, point-to-point kind of style is going to be extremely useful. I think I believe it's hole number 3 actually, right? The 600-yard par 5. If you can carry it something like 300, 310 yards, you're going to have something like 250 yards into that green because you can cut the corner. Whereas a lot of those, shorter hitters, the European style, right, playing it along the ground, aren't going to be able to take advantage of that. It's going to be a 3-shot hole for them. So I think it's a perfect golf course this week. You can't really look at one skill set over another. You're going to have to try and find value on the board, right? Try and find guys that are mispriced. I think it's that kind of week. We'll talk about a few key stats here towards the end of the video that I'm keeping an eye on, but it's much less of a type of skill set kind of week, is more of like just trying to find the value, right? The guys that are hitting the ball well of late, that are, have putted well on these slow fescue greens in the past, and trying to find an edge that way. All right, now for a look at this course hole by hole. So first off, hole number 1, 460. This is the start of the 9, where I say it's more like American style. It's not as much of a link, so you can see the ocean isn't even in sight. It's not close to what the holes here on the front 9. It's a little bit longer on the front side, and the greens, though they have a lot of the same kind of characteristics as a link style golf course, especially the bunkering, very reminiscent of most of those link style golf courses. There are larger greens with not as much undulation. So like I said, I think the Americans will feel very comfortable on the first few holes. Hole 2, 485, another long par 4. These fairways, when they're non-receptive, right, when they're firm and fast, tend to roll out a lot. This week, it's, I'm not sure how they're going to run, right? There should be good drainage out there, considering that it's near the coastline. But 485, if you're not getting rollout, is going to play extremely long and extremely difficult. So another longer hole. Hole 3 is 598. This is the dog leg I was talking about, the one that you can cut off if you're a longer hitter. In fact, let's see. Let's set our tee position 1 out there, 330. If you can get it over the corner, maybe get it to bounce through the rough and into the fairway, you're left with about 250 yards in, like I was saying. A lot of these DP World Tour players are just shorter players in general, right? Plenty of American players that fit that description too. Are probably just going to hit it to the edge of this fairway here. You're going to see a lot that take driver that end up towards the end of the fairway, right? Almost running through here because of how firm and fast it was playing last year. Maybe because of the rain, they don't get as much rollout and they end up a little bit closer to here, right, in the fairway. But either way, that's a 300-yard shot, right? Most of them are going to lay up to this little zone right here, leave that little 100-yard shot in, something along those lines, or maybe try and push it up a little bit further. But then you bring in these bunkers into play, which is like that 70-yard bunker shot, which players hate. This is like a 50-yard bunker shot from this front bunker right here. Hole 3, if you can carry it over the corner, right, and just get up on 2, easy birdie luck. Might even have a few eagles there. For everyone else, you might be walking out of here with a bogey. It is that type of golf course. Hole 4 is 418, little dogleg action from left to right. I don't know, it's a layup hole for like everyone. I couldn't see hitting driver. Hole 4, I guess if you wanted to take the direct line, to get it up to this and try to bounce it on, it would be 350 to get there. Like I said, most guys are just going to lay up. Hole 5, a little bit more doable if you're going for it. You do have this little wall to worry about if you're laying up. So you will see people that try to drive this green at 5, but the green is extremely contoured. It's one of the harder greens to get up and down on. Last year, I thought you'd see like a 60, 70% birdie rate here, and it played to like a 35 to 45% pretty much every single day. So it's a little bit trickier than it looks, even though it's only 337. This wall, believe it or not, for people that were laying up, was, I think, even more troublesome than going for the green. It was actually a little bit of a safer option. So I think you're going to see almost everyone go for it this time. Hole 6 is 145, shorter par 3. Once again, these look simple. They're not. There's just so much contouring on these greens. These bunkers are very much so in play. All of the slope takes balls from the edge of the green into these bunkers on both sides. And like I said, there's not an easy hole out here. Like there's holes that you can definitely make birdie on, that you expect to make birdie on, but not every single hole. Hole 7, this is a par 4, not a par 5. So I believe the tee position they were using last year was this one. Yeah, the one that's right around 500 yards. So they're teeing off from up here. They're hitting their drives past this little pot bunker in most cases, right? That'd be like a 300-yard carry to this pot bunker. If you end up hitting it in there, you're just you're screwed. That's not an easy shot at all, right? Like 200 yards in. If you can hit the short stuff, right, get a little bit of rollout, you're going to have like 180, maybe 175 into the green. It's a harder hole, right, especially now that it's a par 4, but you could see some birdies there. It's not completely inconceivable. Hole 8 is 446. This is a tough tee shot. Again, the longer hitters that can take these bunkers out of play have a huge advantage. So as long as it's not playing directly into the fan, you might see guys like Rory, Scotty Scheffler just try and bomb it over it. In terms of just a raw carry, you've got to hit it 316, right? Those elite tier bombers can certainly get that done. Just this front 9, like I said, it really favors a long ball. Hole 9, 217, long par 3, same kind of thing. Then you get to the back 9. And it's a completely different story. So a lot of it's topography based, right? You can see the ocean there, right? We're starting to get close to true links country here. And these are the only holes that are on that part of the property. Muirfield is the one that owns most of the property down over this way, and only gave the Renaissance Club like 4 holes worth of it. So they had to make use of it the best they could. Hole 10 is a great use of it. It's a 600-yard par 5. This bunker over there to the left is an automatic layup. Over here to the right, you can catch a lie. It's that long fescue grass, but there's a lot of hills and contours to worry about. Most of the time, you get a really shitty lie, and you're probably going to be laying up too. So if you can hit the short stuff, hit a good drive. I saw people hitting it like 340 last year. Out here where I have this marker, you can definitely get home in 2. It's like 250 from there. It could be up to like 300 yards, depending on how much rollout that you're getting there. But this green, just like all of them on property here, this hole looks a lot simpler than it is. This green has so much contouring to it. The around the green shots here are some of the most difficult on the entire golf course. It's even if you're starting on this back 9, it looks like, oh, you get a par 5 on the first hole. You're going to see a lot of birdies. No, you're going to see, I would say, probably the same amount of like birdies and bogeys here at number 10. It's that difficult a par 5. You'll see some scoring, right? But you're going to see a lot of bogeys too. Hole 11 is a dogleg from left to right, another par 4, another one along the coast here. A lot of times you have wind coming into you that makes this hole play even longer, and a really long approach shot too. You have a lot of contouring here. Everything slopes from the left to the right side. You have this fescue grass up there, which can be super troublesome if you miss over there. Not only are you short-sided to a green that slopes away from you, but you're hitting out of like 1 2-foot tall fescue grass. So good luck with that if you miss left. Hole 12, long par 3, into the wind, 202 yards. Have fun with that. You also have this little wall to the right. Matt Fitzpatrick last year hit the ball onto the green over here, which I believe is like hole 14 or 15 green. And he had the chip over the wall, right? Because you don't get relief from this wall. It's just like part of the golf course. He had the chip over the wall and get it back onto hole 12, and he made par. I know that because I was betting against him that day, and he saved par somehow. Hole 13 is my favorite hole in the golf course. This is potentially drivable, believe it or not. Scotty Scheffler last year got this onto the green. So what is it to the front? 369. It was very firm and fast last year, so Scotty probably landed his drive back here, right in like the 327 kind of category, and got it to roll the whole way up. I think if it's super wet this year, which is what they're calling for right now, what we're expecting, you're going to see more people lay up, right? They're going to probably hit it the whole way back here. Everything slopes heavily from the right to left side here. Okay, so you probably hit it further than the 230. You probably try to get it like right here, right around like 130, 140 yard shot. And the further left you hit it. So if you get it down to like where this marker is, here on the far left side, the flatter the fairway is. The further right you hit it, the more slope you have to deal with. So if it's super damp this year, you might see some balls stopping on that slope on the right side, which would kind of suck because then you have the ball above your feet, all that shit to worry about. So yeah, I think 13 might play harder this year just because of the soft conditions. Most of the other holes should play easier, right? Because of the soft conditions, maybe not hole 13. Hole 14, shorter par 3, 161. Once again, if you overhit it, you can end up on hole 12 and have to chip over the ball there, so that's fun. Hole 15 is 484, longer par 4. This is one of the more difficult tee shots on property, especially if you miss over there to the right with any sort of, shot that fades too much, any sort of slice. Good luck there. Hole 16, 572, so par 5. It's a scoreable hole. It's long though. It's definitely not a gimme to reach there in 2. Most players will at least get it to like that 50-60 yard pitch shot range, right? As long as you're not in a fairway bunker off the tee. It should be a birdie hole though. Hole 17 is 202 yards. This is the flattest green on the entire golf course. Unlike all the other holes that have lots of contouring, lots of internal breaks going on here, this one's extremely flat. The only real contouring is there in the middle where there's a little bit ridge to worry about, actually right on the pin marker that you have on this overhead look. But yeah, I'd say one of the easier holes, believe it or not, even though it's only 200 yards, because your putts are easily makeable out there at 17. And then hole 18 is 484, long finishing hole, par 4. You got a little wall here, but it's not really in play whatsoever. And the green, very difficult links style hole. So the back 9 has a lot more contouring to it. You see more fescue grass in play. You've got the coastal holes with the wind to worry about. So that's why I said it's a little bit of a tale of two halves, right? In the front 9, you're sheltered from all of that. You're well inland. It's longer holes. A lot more about just playing point to point. Back 9, not so much, right? There's creativity involved. There's layup holes like you have there with hole 13, which is why I think this is a perfect golf course for this specific event. So now that we've seen the golf course, let's go through some of our key stats this week that I'll be using to identify those top plays. And at number 1, we've got ourselves shots gained approach. And shouldn't be a surprise, but the main thing I'm focusing on this week is your long iron play. Approach play is already extremely predictive, right? The most consistent stat that we have in PGA DFS. When somebody's hitting the ball in the approach play, usually they sustain that for 3-4 months at a time sometimes. And usually it's the most predictive stat too, right? A lot of times players will start to pop with their approach play before they do with other categories. And when the rest of their game catches up is when you get the Wyndham Clarks of the world, right? When you get the Ricky Fowler resurgence that we've seen over the past few months. But at this golf course, especially the long par 3s, some of the harder par 4s, that 175 to 200, I'd say even that 150 to 175 yard range, I'm going to be used a lot more at this golf course than most. So if you're going to look at anything, you're going to use any of those proximity buckets that people ask about every single week, it would be those slightly long irons. Now that 200 plus yard range, 200 to 225, etc. I don't know if those are ones that I'm hunkering down on because there's not a ton of those shots outside of the par 5s that you're playing, but those mid to slightly, maybe long irons that you're hitting, the ones to look at this week. Number 2, you got shots gained in windy conditions, which is a hard one, right? I'm a stats guy. I'm all about models, trying to go out there, especially to try and find some value plays. But unfortunately, the wind data can be a little bit inconsistent. It's all depending on the sort of website, the sort of database that you're looking at. Some of them classify a windy day as opposed to a calm day differently. It's hard to quantify the difference between like a kind of windy day and an extremely windy day. So there's a lot of, let's say, gray area that goes involved with these sort of metrics. But if you're looking at Fantasy National, you're looking at Rick Run Good. I don't know if he has that on that site, but a lot of the different databases that you have out there, you'll have access to win stats. It's not the worst thing to look at, right? I wouldn't make it number one in your model. I wouldn't make it like 25-30% of the modeling that you're looking at this week. But compared to other stats, it is something I'm considering this week a lot more than most. You've got 25 to 30 mile an hour wind gusts pretty much projected the entire week. Like I said, it's going to be wet, kind of rainy out there too, windy, right? Just dreadful in general. I think looking at past Open Championship conditions, people that have played well when you've had this kind of slogfest in the past, not a bad idea. There's a kind of mindset that comes into playing well at those kind of golf courses, and at the very least is something that I'm incorporating into my model. Number 3, I've got shots gained putting. Those will be on slow greens. It is fescue grass this week in terms of your putting surfaces, but you're not going to see that outside of this week and maybe the Open Championship every single year. So I'm not looking at shots gained putting on fescue, more so looking at slow greens. The greens are slow here. They're slow at the Open Championship. They're slow at a few courses on the PGA Tour too, especially some of the coastal, windier type of courses, which, obviously it's kind of the case here in Scotland, but it's more the tropical courses on the PGA Tour. On the Pass Palm grass, right, which is obviously not fescue, but it plays kind of similar, that you might be able to look at from that end. So if you're taking a look at some of those alternate field events where you get that Pass Palm, I don't think that's the worst idea. Also looking at driving distance, that's very important on the front nine, and also taking a look at some of the shots gained at Open Championships. And normally I have a whole breakdown on some of the comp courses you can look at. Unfortunately, the Renaissance Club is such a unique track that I don't really know if there are many tracks you can use as a comparison. Last year I tried, and honestly, I kind of changed my opinion by round 2 on what I thought about the track. So I'm not going to try to go out there and use comps. If you want to look at links style golf courses, like shots gained links courses, I'll be putting that in my model this week. But in terms of like a specific comp that you're looking at, not any that stand out in my book this week. So not going to be a comp course section out there, but I think if you're going to look at any sort of correlation analysis, right, trying to find corollary courses to use in your model, you might just want to look at Open Championships or this event from last year. Alrighty guys, that is all I've got for the course breakdown this week. Hopefully it's going to be a good one. I'm expecting this weather to at least make it a little bit more difficult than we've seen over the last few weeks. And frankly, I'm ready not to see a birdie fest. I'm ready to go out there, see these players struggle a little bit, right? Take on a world-class design. And I think that's exactly what we're going to get this week. So I'm stoked for it. Appreciate all the support here on the channel as per usual, guys. Smash that like button on your way out of here. And would love your thoughts on terms of winning score. And it's early, right? The weather's going to play a huge factor. But based on what I'm looking at, again, early Monday morning right now, right? It's looking like you're going to have that wind, that rain we were talking about. I'm going to take 11 under par. I think it'll be a little bit easier than what you saw last year with the rain, but the wind, it's going to throw them off just enough to keep it out of like that 15 to 20 under par range. But let me know your thoughts down below. Maybe the weather forecast you're looking at is a little bit more favorable. In that mind, I could very well see it being a little bit further under par. But just love to hear what you guys are thinking. Until then, best of luck with your lineups, any outrights you're going with. The model this week is going to be very approach heavy, very putting heavy like we talked about, and mixing in a little bit of carnage that you see there at those windy, slogfest kind of tracks too. So looking forward to it. Gonna have plenty of content dropping in terms of DFS. Also our live stream Wednesday at 7 p.m. So until then, guys, best of luck with those lineups, that exposure, and let's get this cash.